Escaping a haunted past. 30 days in Florida revealed a sinister curse that follows me. Sarah felt the weight of her past every time she inhaled the humid Florida air as she stood before her new home. The paint was peeling like her old life, and the weeds curled with a kind of vile pride around the steps. Just as she thought she'd left it all behind her broken heart, her twisted memories, she found the journal. Dust danced in the air as she raked her fingers across its cover, and its spine creaked open like a scream in the stillness. Inside, the handwriting held secrets, chronicling a family cursed. Chills crept down her spine, but she dismissed it as folklore. She had enough to worry about. Ethan whining, Lily clinging to her leg, the silence of their new life a haunting reminder of what was lost. Days blurred into sleepless nights. Shadows stretched unnaturally in the corners of her vision, and the flickering lights became a nightly companion, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. They laughed together, but unease would creep in like an uninvited guest. Ethan started crying in the night, his tiny voice trembling as he gripped the covers and spoke of the man in the wall. At first, Sarah dismissed it as the imagination of a child, until she could hear the whispers herself. There it was again, a muffled voice slithering through the cracked walls, promising to unravel the piece she'd fought so hard to find. "Mommy, what if he comes for us?" Ethan's eyes were wide and searching, and her heart raced. Fear had a way of twisting itself into anxiety, tightening its grip around her throat. Every time she settled down with a book, the air around her thickened with anticipation, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah finally surrendered to the stormy dread that gripped her. At the end of her wits, she knocked on Mrs. Morales' door. The woman had an odd way of looking at her, eyes scanning, tongue clicking disapprovingly. But over cups of herbal tea in the dim light of her kitchen, the tales flowed. A witch's curse. It was tied to the very earth, the foundation of her home. Each word chipped away at Sarah's disbelief, fear merging with a gnawing realization that maybe she was not free after all. The restless spirits were not just figments but a monstrous legacy, ready to ensnare her and her children. As the wind howled outside, it felt like time was slipping through her fingers. The door creaked, an ominous sound that seemed to echo the torment in her mind. Then came the knock, sharp and undeniable. Her heart thundered. She was terrified of the revelation that awaited her on the other side. The whispers grew louder, mingling with her breath as dark shadows enveloped her, leaving no shred of comfort in this decaying house. Shadows danced on the walls like skeletal hands, each inch gaining ground as fear clawed its way into her mind. "Mommy, help me. I can't see." Lily's pleas shattered the silence, and Sarah took a shaky breath, bracing herself for the truth that loomed over her fragile existence. She was about to discover the identity of the caller, the one who might expose her past. The words rang in her ears, "You can't escape your past." And in that moment, she knew whatever waited for her on the other side of the door would force her to confront the greatest horror of all: betrayal. The door rattled again, louder this time, as if the heartbeat of the house had quickened in response to her fear. A pit formed in Sarah's stomach. She glanced back at Ethan, whose eyes darted around the dimly lit room, wide and terrified. Lily was now pressed tightly against her side, trembling. The shadows grew thicker, wrapping around them like a suffocating fog. With a deep breath, Sarah reached for the doorknob. Her fingers tingled, and the cold metal felt wet against her skin. "Stay back," she whispered to the children, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her own terror. Pushing the door open, she was met with darkness. The hallway stretched before her, silent yet oppressive, shadows clinging to the walls in unnatural shapes. A chill snaked through her, wrapping around her spine as if something was waiting just out of sight. "Who's there?" she called, her voice shaking. The only answer was the distant rumble of thunder, promising more rain to come. Just then, a whisper broke the silence, a menacing hiss that seemed to coil around her ears. "Sarah, come closer!" Panic surged through her, and she stumbled back, slamming the door shut. "Mommy!" Ethan's small voice quaked. "What was that?" "I don't know." She pressed her back against the door, the wood splintering against her palms. Her heart pounded as she felt an unwelcoming presence looming just outside, as if the walls themselves held their breath, hiding something sinister. Desperate for answers and a flicker of strength, she rushed back to the safety of the living room. "We need to leave this house," she declared, her voice firm. A dark thought flickered through her mind. Was it even possible? Could she just pack up their lives? Or was this curse embedded deep within her, no matter where they fled? But as she turned, a flash of movement caught her eye. It was just a mirror reflecting the dim light, but what stared back was not her own pale face. A shadowy figure stood behind her, its features distorted but its gaze piercing through her. Sarah froze, paralyzed as the creature's mouth twisted into a chilling grin. "Leave while you still can," it whispered, its voice echoing like 1,000 warnings. A sense of dread filled the room as she stumbled backward, grabbing hold of Lily and Ethan. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her eyes wide with terror. "Don't look!" Sarah yelled, shielding them with her body, but the figure didn't vanish. Instead, it stepped forward, the room growing colder, air tightening around them like a noose. Time slowed as Sarah's mind raced. The journal suddenly flashed in her thoughts, the tales of the curse and the warnings of those who had tried to escape. Hadn't Mrs. Morales said it would feed on their fears? As her resolve wavered, the creature extended a hand toward them, gesturing as if inviting them to the depths of darkness. "You must accept your fate." It leaned closer, its rancid breath rolling over them, heavy with despair. "No, we won." Sarah shouted, fueling her voice with the energy of her fear, determination igniting within her. Just then, the lights flickered violently before succumbing to darkness. The howling wind outside blended with the whispers of the walls, an ominous chorus demanding her surrender. In that moment, she understood. Confronting the darkness inside would be the only way to break free. "Ethan, Lily, hold on to me," she urged, her grip tightening as they huddled together. With every ounce of will, she moved toward the shadows, ready to confront whatever was rooted in this home and her past. But a flickering shadow brushed past them, darting out of sight, hinting at something more, a truth buried deep within those walls. And then came a voice, clearer than before, an echo of her name that stirred something cold in her veins. Sarah, just how far could she push back against the curse? Would her resolve be enough to defy what awaited? As the whispers rose higher, her heart raced. The fate of her family hinged on unlocking the secrets lying in the dark. And there, within the enveloping shadows, lay a new discovery waiting to be unearthed. But would it bring salvation or doom? The darkness enveloped them, a thick blanket that pressed against Sarah's skin like a warning. The air felt different now, heavier and filled with an electric tension. She shivered, not from the cold but from the palpable fear radiating from the corners of the room, from the entity waiting just out of sight. "Mommy?" Lily's whisper was almost lost in the swell of shadows. "I'm scared." "Me too, sweetheart," Sarah breathed, but her resolve hardened. She had to protect them. The whispers swirled around her, insistent and malevolent. "We need to find another way out." Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped into the dark hallway again, clutching her children tightly. The floor creaked beneath their weight, each step echoing through the silent space, amplifying her anxiety. A sense of foreboding pressed down on her, as if the walls were watching and waiting, ready to close in. As they moved deeper into the house, Sarah's heart raced. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle were like tiny knives scraping against her nerves. The flickering shadows seemed to twist and smirk, feeding on her terror. She could almost hear their laughter, their mockery. "Stay close," she whispered, urging them forward. To distract herself from the fear, she scanned the walls, searching for an escape or a piece of the puzzle that would help her understand the creature that tormented them. With each corner they turned, her heart sank further. The more rooms they passed, the more claustrophobic the house felt, the walls bleeding their dread. And then she saw an old door at the end of the hall, partially open. A faint light flickered from within, a stark contrast to the swallowing dark around them. Hope fluttered in her chest, a fragile thing, too easily crushed. "This way," she said, her voice trembling with uncertainty as they approached the door. Its edges splintered into jagged shadows, casting an eerie glow. The light beckoned like a siren-esque call. But just as they reached for the handle, a cold wind whipped through them, howling like a banshee. It sent Ethan and Lily stumbling backward, their faces pale with fright. Sarah steadied herself, fighting against the pull of panic. "No, we can't stop now." But the whispers grew louder, invading her thoughts, claws scraping against her sanity. "Sarah, why do you resist? Stop it," she shouted, anger igniting the fear swirling within her. Yet, as she stood firm, the whispers twisted into agonizing wails, tearing at her resolve. Shadows surged, creeping closer, encircling them like a noose. "I won't let you have them." She pushed open the door, her breath hitching in her throat as she stepped inside. Light flooded their path, revealing a sparsely furnished room, filled with dusty relics and broken mirrors. And there, on a pedestal, sat an old, leather-bound book, the journal. With her heart pounding, Sarah approached it, her fingers trembling as they reached for the cover. This journal held the answers, the key to breaking the curse that plagued her family. But as soon as her fingers brushed the surface, a cold voice swept through the air. "You shouldn't have come here." A figure emerged from the shadows, an echo of the tormentor that had whispered her name. Its eyes glowed with a hunger that sent her heart into overdrive. It's time to face what was left behind in that moment, she realized. Running wouldn't save them. They had to confront the truth hidden in those pages. But just as she opened the book, the screams of the house crescendoed, drowning out her thoughts, pulling at her very soul. The weight of dread was crushing as she realized they could lose everything if she didn't act swiftly. If she didn't unlock the secrets before the darkness swallowed them whole. "Mommy!" Ethan wailed, his voice cutting through the chaos, grounding her even as the shadows twisted. Ready to strike, she glanced back at her children. The weight of the moment settled deep within her. Would she have the courage to unearth their past, to change their future? With a deep breath, she steeled herself. If they wanted to escape the curse, she had to dive deeper into the horrors that awaited within the book. But as she turned the first page, a sudden tremor shook the room, the walls groaning in protest. Felt like time itself was unraveling. What would she find written in the very fabric of her family's history? The shadows loomed ever larger, whispering promises of devastation, pulling them closer to the brink of madness, and she knew the worst was yet to come. The book creaked open, pages fluttering like trapped moths. Each turn unleashed a stench of decay and old secrets. Sarah hesitated, her heart pounding violently in her chest, the whispers weaving tighter around her like a noose. "Mommy, I don't like this place," Lily whimpered, eyes wide with a terror that mirrored her mother's. "Stay behind me," Sarah whispered, forcing herself to focus. She scanned the pages, desperate for words that might help. Strange symbols danced before her, daring her to read. Each line felt like fingers tracing her spine, sending chills down her arms. "No," a voice murmured, deep and guttural. The figure that had materialized stepped closer, shrouded in a cloak of darkness, its intentions clear and vicious. "You must not unveil the truth." "Who are you?" she demanded, voice shaking, anger creeping in against the tide of fear. "I am what lies between the pages of this cursed book," it hissed, and the shadows at the corners of the room seemed to pulse with a grotesque glee. "Your family's sins have anchored me here. You will join them, unless you heed my warning." She couldn't think. The air was thick with dread, suffocating. She needed time to process, to plan and escape. Ethan clung to her leg, his small body trembling. "Mommy, what does it want?" Before Sarah could answer, the book began to glow, emitting a sickly light that wormed its way into her eyes. The shadows warped, swirling around them in howling tendrils. An image began to materialize, a dark memory etched in time that it showed a family, once vibrant, now faded like a forgotten photograph. They stood proud, smiling, but beneath the surface, something sinister stirred. Blood-red marks crisscrossed their arms. A desperate scream cut through the vision, shattering the silence. "No, not again. You can't take my children," Sarah gasped, tearing her eyes away, but the memory clung to her, taking root. It was her family, and yet it felt like a lifetime ago, as if she was watching someone else's pain unfold. And the whispers grew louder, mocking her resolve. "Face it, Sarah. You cannot escape what is already written." "Stop," she cried, rage boiling. She couldn't let this thing take her children. It was time to fight back. Gathering all her courage, she reached out to the book, feeling an icy pulse emanate from its depths. The moment her fingers touched the pages, the visions intensified. Another scream echoed, haunting and familiar. It was her own. No longer a mere observer, she was thrust into a scene, a night cloaked in shadows, heart racing. Screams punctured the darkness, her screams. "No, I can't go through this again," she screamed, but the room spun violently, shadows overwhelming her sense of reality. Just when it felt like the darkness would swallow them whole, the image shifted, flashes of light appearing around the edges. An opening. Hope. A fragile but undeniable flicker. It beckoned to her. "Come to me." With renewed determination, Sarah pulled her children closer, gripping the book like a lifeline. The figure shrieked, its form shredding into pieces. The shadows contorted, but something else pushed against them, a force, a promise of salvation. "Mommy, please," Ethan's voice broke through. The room lurched, and the book rattled in her hands. She could feel power coursing through her veins. It was time to rewrite the ending. The truth could save them or doom them forever. In that moment, Sarah made a choice. "We will break this curse," she declared, voice steady, despite the turmoil. She slammed the book shut, cutting the wails into silence. The shadows recoiled, hissing like wounded animals, darting back like flames retreating from water. But although she had taken a stand, the air still buzzed with discontent. There was no way they were out of danger just yet. With shaky breaths and hearts racing, they stood at the threshold of a new horror, a chilling laughter echoing through the final pages. "Leaving so soon?" The remnants of the voice taunted. "You cannot run from your past. It will find you." "What do we do now, Mommy?" Lily asked, fear dripping from her voice. Just then, a low rumble filled the room, and the shadows churned ominously. Sarah felt a cold dread wash over her as she turned to the others, knowing one thing for certain. The danger was far from over. In pursuit of the escape they desperately sought, a far greater threat loomed ahead. What else awaited them in the pages of the past? The walls shivered, the shadows creeping closer with each heartbeat. Sarah felt her breath hitch in her throat. "We need to move now," she urged, grabbing Ethan's hand while pulling Lily close. She sprinted toward the door, her mind racing. They couldn't stay here. The room felt alive, a beast awakening, hungry and thrumming with rage. But the door wouldn't budge. An invisible force slammed it shut, trapping them inside. Panic wrapped around her like barbed wire. "What do you mean we can't leave?" she shouted, shaking it. The whispers intensified, rising into a symphony of malicious laughter, wrapping Sarah's thoughts in dread. Ethan tugged at her. "The windows." Sarah darted to the nearest one, but it was covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. "Help me," they cried together, pushing against the window, but it didn't budge. The shadows flickered, flickering bright and dark, as if mocking their efforts. Suddenly, the ground rumbled again, a low growl that seemed to emanate from the walls. The dark figure reappeared, now towering over them in its malevolence. Its face was a void, a blackness so deep it swallowed light, eyes glowing like embers. Did you think you could escape the past? It hissed, sending waves of icy dread washing over Sarah. She stumbled back, pulling her children with her. Get away from us, she screamed, her voice hoarse. The figure laughed, a sound that chilled her bones. Your struggle is meaningless. The book is a part of you now. The truth cannot be buried forever. You must face your family's sins. What do you know about us? Sarah yelled, but doubt crept into her heart. What had her family done? What secrets rested like festering wounds in her past? The entity raised a hand, and the shadows danced, swirling into terrifying shapes. Sarah stumbled backward, falling against the wall. Her heart raced as fear clawed at her throat. Keep away, she warned, trying to shield her children. Lily and Ethan squeezed her tighter. They were terrified, and so was she, the darkness threatening to devour them whole. But then, a glimmer caught her eye. The book. It lay open on the floor, pages fluttering as if alive, a voice beckoning from its depths. Help us, Sarah. We are your only hope. Steeling herself, she shot a glare at the looming figure, then made a beeline for the book. As her fingers touched the pages, a surge of energy pulsed through her, brightening the room with an otherworldly light. A voice echoed in her mind, pleading. You must remember. Images flooded her thoughts. Her mother, distant and pale, scribbling worried notes late into the night, warnings of a family curse that had plagued them for generations. The truth buried deep in the past. It won't work, the figure bellowed, but Sarah felt a tide of anger rise, fighting against the shadows. The whispers swarmed her thoughts, scrambling for control, yet determination surged. I will not let you take them, she shouted, gripping the book tighter as she closed her eyes. Memories flashed like lightning, broken promises, hidden fears, and the blood that tied their fates together. She could feel the weight of those buried sins, the darkness feeding off them, alive and hungry. Show me, Sarah cried, and the shadows screamed in agony, writhed in pain. Colors burst into existence, illuminating the grim truths that had haunted her family. But then, silence. Everything stilled. The laughter faded, replaced by a heavy, suffocating quiet. Mommy? Lily's tiny voice quivered. Sarah opened her eyes, and the world had shifted. The figure was gone, replaced by a doorway of blinding light. Had she succeeded? Had she broken the curse? But crisis still brewed. The moment felt fragile, teetering on a knife's edge. She turned to her children, fear and hope mixing in her gaze. We need to go, she urged. But where does this lead? What lies beyond the light? Just as they took a step forward, the whispers returned, now more frantic, echoing around them like a deafening storm. You can't escape. The truth is still waiting. And when it seemed they were about to move forward, another howl erupted, shaking the very floor beneath them. The realization hit hard. This wasn't the end. As the laughter returned, mocking and relentless, Sarah felt the darkness returning. They were still trapped, still bound by their past. Run, she shouted, pushing her children forward. Whatever lay ahead was unknown, but at that moment, the past was chasing them, prepared to reclaim what it had lost. Mommy, where are we going? Ethan's voice trembled. Anywhere but here, Sarah cried as the shadows lunged. But in that dizzying rush toward the light, a terrifying thought pierced her mind. What if the truth that followed them was darker than she ever imagined? The moment Sarah plunged into the light, it engulfed her. She felt weightless, as if she had no body. The world around her twisted into a swirl of brightness, like stepping into a sunbeam that bent and warped the very fabric of reality. Ethan's hand slipped from hers, and Sarah spun in panic. Ethan, Lily, she called, her voice echoing in the luminescence. It felt like she was caught in a dream, where every sound resonated and then faded into nothing. Suddenly, the blinding light ripped apart, revealing a landscape that terrified her. They were no longer trapped in that suffocating room. Instead, they stood outside a dilapidated house, much like the one they had escaped. The air was thick with an ominous silence, yet shadows darted at the corners of her vision. Mom, Lily's voice pierced the silence, just as desperate as Sarah felt. She swung around to see her children standing a few feet away, frozen, their expressions reflecting the fear that clawed at Sarah's heart. "We need to go," Sarah urged, trying to break through the overwhelming sense of dread. But as she moved toward them, something in the atmosphere shifted. A chilling gust swept past, and with it came a low, rasping whisper that slithered into their ears. "Run while you can." The children flinched, and Sarah felt a surge of cold run through her veins. "What was that?" Ethan asked, his eyes darting. "I don't know, but we need to get away from here." She grasped their hands tighter and pulled them along the cracked path leading away from the house. With each step, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that echoed haunting truths. Secret sins buried in shadows, they clamored, each word pulling at Sarah like a noose tightening around her throat. "Make it stop," Lily cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Just keep moving. Don't listen to them." Sarah's voice strained as she fought against the dread creeping into her mind. She quickened her pace, dragging her children along the crumbling path, eyes darting, searching for an escape. Ahead, a dense fog began to form, slowing their progress. "Mommy, I can't see," Ethan whined, panic rising in his voice. "Hold on tight." She squeezed their hands and plunged into the fog. It engulfed them, a suffocating blanket that seemed alive. Sarah's heart raced. Every breath felt like inhaling despair. "Didn't you learn?" A sly voice whispered just behind her. "You can never leave. The past is always there." Just then, a figure emerged from the clouds, one that made Sarah's blood run cold. It was the dark entity again, the very same that had tormented them in the room. "You cannot escape your heritage," it hissed, its void-like face twisting into a grotesque smile, eyes glowing with malevolence. "Mom!" Lily screamed, gripping Sarah's arm, her small body shaking with fear. "Stay behind me," Sarah commanded, adrenaline coursing through her. "We can't let it get us." The figure lunged forward, shadows reaching out like claws. As the darkness closed in, Sarah felt a tug deep within her, as if the very fabric of her being was intertwined with the book, the family curse calling to her from the depths of her mind. "Face it," the entity snarled. "You can't run from what you are." And just as it seemed they were trapped once more, Sarah remembered the flashes of memory, the power from the book. She dug deep, feeling it at her core, the desperate need to protect her children. Closing her eyes, she pictured the light from the book, its embrace surrounding them once again. "I will not be your puppet," she cried, summoning every ounce of strength she had. The ground shook violently, and the fog screamed as shadows torn apart, scrambling backward. "No! You dare defy me?" the entity roared, falling into the darkness that pooled at its feet. "We can do this," Sarah shouted to her kids, determination igniting her voice. But before they could move forward, that chilling laughter broke through the air, once more a reminder that their ordeal was far from over. She glanced back to where the entity had vanished. Her heart fell. What if it wasn't finished? What if they had only stirred the darkness awake? "Mom, what is happening?" they clamored, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we need to find out," she said, swallowing hard. "We can't stop until we uncover the truth." Taken by urgency, they stepped cautiously back into the fog, not knowing what awaited them. The whispering shadows circled them, ready to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. Was the truth they sought a salvation or a deeper abyss? With her heart pounding, Sarah tightened her grip on her children. Whatever lay ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine, and the darkness still loomed. The fog thickened, coiling around them like a living thing. Each breath was heavy with the stench of decay, endless whispers slithering through the damp air. Sarah fought the urge to cover her ears. She knew the voices were lying. "Mom, I can't breathe," Ethan gasped, the panic in his wide eyes matching her own. "Stay close." She pulled them forward, their progress slowed by treacherous roots that twisted up from the earth. The dilapidated house loomed behind them, an eternal witness to their terror. Whatever haunted that place had its grasp on them, attempting to pull them back into its grasp. "Where do we go?" Lily's voice quivered, her small hand slipping from Sarah's, but Sarah quickly pulled her back. Just keep going. Fear rippled through the pit of Sarah's stomach. It felt like the shadows had teeth, gnawing at their heels. The laughter echoed again, chilling her blood. There was more to uncover. She could feel it. But what? Ahead, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a brief glimpse of something pale darting in the fog. Did you see that? She whispered, dread pooling in her gut. See what? Ethan's voice trembled, glancing around wildly. Keep moving, she urged, her instincts screaming at her to get out. But the fog parted just enough to reveal something wretched, a mirror protruding from the ground. Its surface clouded but reflective enough to show shadows shifting just behind them. Look, Lily pointed, her voice shrill with fear. Sarah approached it cautiously. What's that? In the mirror, their reflections twisted, their eyes darkening, morphing into something unrecognizable. The dark entity loomed larger, a skeletal hand reaching toward the glass. It was inviting, teasing. Foolish mortals, it crooned. Come, see your true selves. The urge to turn away was overwhelming, but a part of Sarah was captivated. Mom! Don't! Ethan cried, sensing the danger. I have to see. She pressed closer, compelled by something deep within. The mirror shimmered, revealing pieces of past lives trapped in torment. Her own screams rang through the scenes. Betrayal, guilt, shadows pulling her down, faces of children who lost it all. No! Sarah recoiled, the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. This isn't who we are. The fog roared, angering at her resistance. Shadows surging forward as if eager to claim what was already theirs. It's no use, the entity bellowed, its laughter growing more monstrous. You think you can deny your legacy? Keep running. Sarah shouted, dragging her children away from the mirror's grip. They stumbled on, emerging into a clearing where the fog thinned slightly, revealing broken remains of other lives lost. Vivid colors swirled around them, momentarily memories almost tangible. Snapshots of joy turned horrific. Mom, what is happening? Lily whimpered, her small voice trembling with confusion and fear. We find the book. It's our only chance. Sarah's mind raced. What if it held the key to breaking this curse? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the house behind them. The shadows shifted, a wave of darkness crashing against the clearing. You are too late, the entity snarled, disorienting gusts of wind whipping wildly around. The curse consumes all. We can't stop. We won't give up. Sarah pulled her children into a desperate sprint towards a path flanked by twisted trees, limbs reaching like skeletal arms. A chase began. They weaved through the chaos, the sounds of laughter and warnings mingling into one deafening roar. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, but that flicker of determination burned within her fiercely. Ahead, a shape loomed, a glowing doorway, barely visible through the underbrush. It beckoned them, a chance to escape or perhaps confront their darkest truths. Mom, please, Ethan cried. Trust me, Sarah urged, her heart hammering. They charged toward the glimmer, not knowing what lay beyond. But the darkness was relentless, and the chilling laughter still echoed behind them. What if this door led to salvation or damnation? In that moment, an overwhelming thought struck Sarah. What if returning to the truth was their only chance? As they burst forward, the air crackled with energy, a decision tightening around her heart. Would she uncover the truth and risk losing everything? Or would she turn away and let the past consume them? The whispers grew closer, and the shadows loomed, waiting. What awaited them beyond the doorway was the realization of a truth long buried and a choice that would seal their fate. Was this the moment they had all been waiting for, or a desolate plunge into the abyss? The moment they burst through the doorway, a cold rush of air enveloped them. It felt like stepping into an icy lake, swallowing them whole. The bright light spilled around them, but it was tinged with a sickly green hue, pulsating as if alive. Sarah felt her heart race. This wasn't just a room. It was an endless expanse filled with echoing horrors. Shadows flickered on the walls, grotesque figures writhing as if they were trapped within the very fabric around them. "What is this place?" Ethan whispered, eyes wide with terror. "I don't know," Sarah replied, trying to sound calm. But her voice cracked, betraying the panic within. She gripped their hands tighter, pulling them forward. They were in a hallway lined with doors, each one unique, yet all exuding a sense of dread. "Where do we go?" Lily's voice trembled, her eyes darting from one door to another. "Stay together." Sarah's throat felt tight. Every instinct told her to escape, yet curiosity gnawed at her. A faint whisper carried through the air, threading its way into her mind. "Choose wisely." A door at the end of the hall caught her attention. It was simple, wooden, unadorned, yet it drew her like a magnet. She had to know. Perhaps it held the answers she sought, the truth she feared. "Mom, don't." Ethan tugged at her sleeve, his eyes filled with pure horror. "We shouldn't go in there." But something inside her urged her on. "I have to," she murmured, stepping toward the door. The whispers intensified, swirling around her, filling her thoughts. "Come closer, find what you seek." Before she could overthink it, she reached for the handle, turning it slowly. It creaked open, revealing a small room bathed in dim light. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding. "Stay right here." She pushed Ethan and Lily back, then stepped through, clutching the doorframe tightly. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. Ghostly images flickered in front of her, fractured memories and shadows of lives lost. Sorrow etched into every strain of the air. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, cradling a dusty, leather-bound book. Its cover bore an intricate design, glowing faintly, beckoning her. "Mom!" Ethan's voice was strained. "Get out of there." She hesitated, hand raised, hovering just above the book. "I need to know." "No, it's a trap," Lily screamed, but it was too late. With trembling fingers, Sarah grasped the book, a jolt of energy surging through her. The pages ripped open on their own, and a wave of images came crashing over her, memories not her own spilling from the depths of the book. It was chaos, screams, laughter, betrayal, darkness. She felt herself being pulled into a whirlwind of despair, the voices of the past shattering her mind. "Sarah!" Ethan cried, voice breaking through the cacophony. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, battling against the tide of emotions sweeping through her. The shadows from the corners of the room twisted and contorted, reaching for her like desperate hands. "Mom!" Ethan's panic magnified, and the walls began to tremble. She fought her way back, clutching the book tightly, forcing her mind to focus. What was real? What was the truth? Suddenly, in the midst of the chaos, a clear image appeared, a family, laughing, happy, their faces twisted, fading into shadows, replaced by tortured visages. This wasn't just her past. It was theirs too, families bound by forgotten sins. "No!" Sarah screamed, the truth striking her like a physical blow. The book was a conduit for pain, trapping them all in its cycle of suffering. With renewed resolve, she ripped her gaze from the images, turning back toward her children with fierce determination. "We will break this, together." As she thundered back toward them, the shadows writhed, and the doorway behind them began to close. "Mom! Hurry!" Ethan's voice was frantic, fear turning his expression to stone. Just as Sarah reached for them, cold hands snatched at her from behind, dragging her back. The book slipped from her grasp, swinging open and scattering the pages. "Seal your fate," the entity whispered, its voice seeping into her bones, chilling her very soul. "No!" She lunged forward, desperate, but it was too late. The door slammed shut, and she was entangled in darkness, the children's terrified cries fading into echoes. A throaty laughter reverberated through the air, and Sarah's heart sank as she realized the truth. They were not in control. Now trapped inside a realm of torment, the only thing left was to confront the shadows waiting for her. What did they want? And could she save her children before it was too late? Darkness enveloped Sarah as she fell into the void, the whispers intensifying around her. The cold seeped into her bones, a chilling reminder of where she was. She could barely see, yet a faint light flickered somewhere up ahead, drawing her closer like a moth to a flame. "Mom!" Ethan's voice echoed through the darkness. His panic clawed at her heart. "Ethan! Lily!" she screamed, desperation fueling her words. But the shadows twisted around her, turning her voice into a mere whisper. She pressed forward, pushing through the dark tendrils reaching out to ensnare her. Suddenly, the light grew brighter, piercing the gloom. It widened into a vast expanse, and Sarah stumbled into a new room. The walls were lined with mirrors, each reflecting distorted versions of her. Ethan and Lily, their eyes wide with fear, mouths open in silent screams. "Mom!" The mirrors. Lily's voice trembled as she grasped Ethan's hand tightly. They were hovering on the threshold of the dimly lit room, their expressions a portrait of terror. Nothing felt real, and yet it was all too familiar. The reflections warped and twisted, the children trapped behind glass prisons, their silhouettes frantic. "Don't look at them!" Sarah shouted, her own heart racing. "They'll distract you." But it was impossible to ignore. The reflections pulled at her, whispering secrets wrapped in shadows. "We want to help," they murmured, but their eyes glinted with malice. The shadows danced between the mirrors, creating illusions that hooked her anxious mind. "Come closer, you know you want to." The voices lured her in like a haunting lullaby. Fear clawed at her throat as she shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. "Ethan! Lily! We have to move." She felt the air thicken, closing in around them. With trembling hands, she grabbed her children, yanking them back into the hallway. They stumbled, their feet barely keeping up with her frantic pace. But as they turned, the mirrors cracked, spiderwebbing across the surfaces. It was like an earthquake of glass, each shatter resonating with a demonic laugh that sent ice down her spine. "Run!" she urged, the sound of their footsteps echoing hard against the walls. Behind them, the laugh morphed into screams, the shadows taking shape, careening through the broken glass. Salvaged pieces glimmered like daggers in the low light. "Your fate is sealed," the entity bellowed from the depths of the mirrors, voice crackling like thunder. Sarah pushed the children forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Don't stop. Keep moving." They raced down the hallway, heartbeats pounding in harmony with their desperate escape. But the corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, new doors fading into darkness. The echo of laughter sharpened, and she could feel it clawing at her back. "Where are we going?" Ethan gasped, his breath ragged with fear. "I don't know," Sarah yelled back, tears stinging her eyes. "But we can't stop." As they rounded a corner, another door loomed ahead. This one was different, dark, ancient wood, its edges scorched as if it had seen a great fire. Without thinking, Sarah grabbed the handle, pulling it open just as the whispers behind them crescendoed into a roar. Inside, the air was thick and smoky. Shadows undulated like liquid, and an overwhelming stench of decay assailed them. A low growl reverberated from the depths of the room. "Stay close," she urged, fear creeping back into her voice. But then a slither of movement caught her eye. A pair of glowing eyes watched them from the shadows. It was massive, shifting shapes blurring with the darkness, oozing menace. "Sarah," Lily whimpered, clutching her mother's leg. "What is that?" With every ounce of her strength, Sarah pulled her children closer, a wave of dread crashing over her. "I don't know, but we have to find a way out now." The growl deepened, resonating inside Sarah's chest. They were no longer alone in this haunted realm. The shadows wanted them, and whatever lay ahead felt far worse than anything that had come before. "What will happen if we can't escape?" Ethan's voice trembled, fear lacing every syllable. As the creature advanced, massive and grotesque, Sarah knew they had to act fast, because in this chaos, time was slipping away. And behind them, the door began to creak shut. Would they make it through, or were they destined to become part of the shadows forever? The shadows loomed, growing larger as fear clawed at Sarah's heart. She gripped her children tightly, the embrace a fragile shield against the horrors surrounding them. The growl reverberated through the room, sending shivers down her spine. "We need to find something, anything," she urged, heart racing as she scanned their surroundings. With every second, the creature advanced, its glowing eyes narrowing, searching for a glimpse of easy prey. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her small fingers gripping Sarah's arm like a vice. "I know, sweet girl," she whispered back, swallowing hard. "But we can't stop now." The darkness felt alive. It shifted and twisted around them, trying to pull them back into its clutches. A sense of urgency surged through Sarah as they backed away in unison. "We need to face this thing. Whatever it is, there's got to be a way out," she thought, shaking off the cold grip of fear. Suddenly, through the fog of panic, a thought struck her. Could the book hold the answers? It had given her a glimpse of power, a connection to a truth buried deep within her lineage. But the darkness shivered with anticipation, almost mocking her resolve. "Mom, it's getting closer," Ethan cried, eyes wide with terror. "I want to let it get you," Sarah shouted, adrenaline coursing hot in her veins. The growl erupted into a piercing scream, vibrating the walls. Something inside her snapped. A surge of instinct ignited her core. They couldn't lose hope. The curse that chased them could be broken, but only if she confronted the truth of her past. She turned ferociously, facing the creature, its form roiling in shadow. "You think you can take us? You don't own us." Her voice rang out like a war cry, cutting through the dreadful noise. The monster faltered just for a moment, perhaps surprised by her bravado. With that flicker of hesitation, Sarah seized the moment. "Children, follow me." She needed to find the strength within herself, and she needed them close. They darted to the side, eyes darting against the darkened walls that seemed to close in on them. Stumbling upon a small table, she spotted a shard of what looked like glass remnants of the shattered mirror. With a flash of clarity, she picked it up, feeling the energy surge within her. "Stand back," she shouted, adrenaline crashing like a wave. "Don't you dare play games with me," the creature hissed, advancing with renewed fury. "You cannot escape your legacy." "Legacy? This isn't our destiny," Sarah screamed, tightening her grip on the glass shard like a lifeline. "We choose our path." With a ferocious burst of will, she hurled the shard toward the advancing darkness. It pierced through the air like a falling star and shattered upon impact, exploding into a shower of light. The room ignited, luminescence spreading, pushing back the shadows. "Mom!" Ethan exclaimed, eyes shining wide. "Keep pushing forward," she urged, their eyes locked in shared determination as they sprinted toward the blinding light that flourished from the scattering pieces of glass. The growl of the entity faded, swallowed by the light, its furious screams turned weak and desperate. As they dashed through the remnants of the dark, the room pulsated with hope rather than dread. They burst through the clearing, emerging into an open space bathed in radiant daylight. Sarah pulled her children into her arms, tears spilling down her cheeks. They were free. Lily looked up at her, awe and relief swimming in her eyes. "Mommy, we did it." "Yes, we did." Sarah's heart swelled with pride. They faced their fears together, proving that love and courage could defy even the darkest shadows. They weren't just escaping a haunted past. They had chosen to rewrite their own future. But then the vibrant sunlight dimmed slightly, shadows weaving at the edges of their vision. A reminder that the fight was not merely over. "We need to be cautious." The past lingers suddenly. A sharp knock echoed in the silence, causing them to freeze. As they turned, a figure appeared, Mrs. Morales, standing at the threshold of light, an enigmatic smile on her lips. "You've done well, Sarah. But understand, the journey is far from complete. The choice is yours whether to face the legacy or leave it be." A sense of unease settled in her chest. This new obstacle reminded her that going forward wouldn't erase the pains of the past. Yet it was possible. It was her choice to make. "Then we'll face it together," Sarah declared, squeezing her children's hands with renewed strength. "Whatever comes next, we're ready." The air crackled with potential, their hearts filled with solidarity. As they stepped toward the unknown, Sarah felt powerful for the first time. The shadows of their legacy were no longer menacing but rather something they could confront and transform. Their journey was only beginning, but now they weren't just running. They were moving forward with purpose. They had the power to redefine their family's narrative. And she wouldn't let that opportunity slip away. With hope glowing bright, they stepped further into the light, ready to write the next chapter of their lives. You need to subscribe now to catch what comes next. These are exclusive stories you can't afford to miss. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion unfold. Show your support. Your engagement matters.